Alright, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to Madrid Hub again. I'm your host, Dr. JOTA. Let me tell you something. Tomorrow we are playing against Osasuna, a very important game, so we will be talking about that. Not about the game, but actually about the starting 11 that Ancelotti might display tomorrow against Osasuna. Because, unlike the game against FC Barcelona, I think that tomorrow we might see a lot of changes going on in the lineup of Real Madrid, and there is a good reason for it, because I think that there are a bunch of players that are looking forward to be back on the starting 11, and there is a reason for it, but I will talk to you about that later. Because the first news I have for you all, the first two stories I have for you all are about Kylian Mbappe and also Erling Haaland. So we are going to flip over the course of the video and we are going to start talking about actually Erling Haaland. The latest news that we have about Erling Haaland, let me tell you something, are very bad news, because he got another very bad injury in the hip, and apparently the guy will be out of the squad, will be out of Borussia Dortmund until the end of the year. So he might not play again in this 2021, and he might be back on track, supposedly by the first weeks, the first days of January the 2021. But it's of course a very bad injury, because as you know, he was back again in Borussia Dortmund the other day, 1 week ago, after 22 days completely off the squad, just because he got another injury. He was trying to recover in Spain, in Marbella. He got back on track, he came along, he apparently healed completely the injury that he had, but the problem is he is back again, is injured, and we don't really know what is going on. It's something in the hip, apparently, that is very true, in the hip flexor or something like that, but what we don't know is how long can it last. For sure he's not going to play again in this 2021, and he might play for the first time in 2022. But this is not actually the latest news that we have on Erling Haaland. But you will see the relation between this injury and the next news. The real news that we have on the Norwegian player is about the new demands Mino Raiola has asked for all the teams that are very interested in signing the player for the next year. Because apparently, according to ESPN, the Norwegian player wants a salary of about 36 million a season, which is of course that'd be one of the highest salaries ever paid in the soccer industry. I think that there are only two more players. They are Neymar and Messi, who are in the same range of Erling Haaland, or in the range that Erling Haaland might be if he's able to convince any single team in Europe to pay him that kind of huge, insane salary. The problem is, and that's why the injury and the news about the injury and all the stuff, when you are in this kind of situation, you are not in a very strong position, and that is something we talked about a lot when Sergio Ramos got injured last season in February, back in February, when he got injured, and then he was trying at the same time to renew his contract with Real Madrid, and we said that he fell down in the weakest side of the table, in the weakest side of the negotiation. And this is pretty much the same. When you have a player, when you represent a player who is all the time, over and over again, or is going through a process of multiple injuries, all stuff like that, you are not anymore in that kind of strong position where you can ask whatever you want, because every single team in Europe, every single team in the planet is willing to pay whatever you want to ask. No, this is a very game changer, and if any of the clubs interested in signing Erling Haaland notice that the player is not ready to go, is struggling with one specific injury or something like that, or is over and over again on and off the field, on and off the squad, coming back, going out just because of the injuries and all the stuff, I don't think that they are willing to pay so much money for the player. Even, I mean, whether salary or transfer fee, they are not they are not willing to pay such a crazy money for that player. So my recommendation, my tip for Mino Raiola in this situation is just hold, wait, and see what happens. Because if the injury is worse than initially the people have thought, it might be another opportunity to you to ask for something bigger. But if it doesn't and the injury is worse than expected, then man, be careful, because all the teams might remove their offers from the table, because there's no point, there's no way in trying to sign a player who is struggling with the injury, with one injury or specific injuries or whatever you want to call it, right? It is exactly the same situation Sergio Ramos is living on right now in PSG. Right now, as you know, in PSG, I mean, within the fans and all the stuff, there are so many people blasting Al Khelaifi for the signing of Sergio Ramos just because he was not aware, or he was not cautious enough to sign a player to whom he threw about 50 million, a single 50 million salary per season, without even being aware, without even considering the possibility for Sergio Ramos not to get back soon, or still, you know, being injured for a long time. You know what I'm saying? So that is the problem right now with Sergio Ramos in PSG, and it might be the same for Erling Haaland in the near future with the injury and all the teams interested in signing the player next year, and that includes to Real Madrid. So let's see what happens. So now let's move on and let's talk about Kylian Mbappe, because apparently, according to Sky Sports Germany, Paris Saint-Germain finally has found the perfect substitute, the perfect replacement for Kylian Mbappe, and it is the player I talked to you about the other day. It is Karim Adeyemi, the Salzburg player, who is doing a great job, an incredible job. He's still in the show every single time he shows up in the field. He's scoring a lot of goals, about 12 goals in 17 appearances, and the player is one of the most promising players, a rising star in Germany right now. He's 18 years old or 19 years old, super young guy, and apparently Paris Saint-Germain has decided to go ahead and try to sign the player to replace or substitute to Kylian Mbappe for the next season. So the point here is, this is very good news for Real Madrid, because as long as Paris Saint-Germain has found the perfect player to replace Kylian Mbappe, it is going to be great for us. I mean, it is not a secret that for Real Madrid this kind of news are great, because as long as Paris Saint-Germain can keep an eye on another player and replace Kylian Mbappe, that is going to be much easier for us to sign the player. And although Paris Saint-Germain has nothing to do anymore with Kylian Mbappe, because he will come up to Madrid for free and we don't have to negotiate any single thing for Paris Saint-Germain, they will still insist in renewing the contract of the player. But if they find another player, if they find another gem, another rising star, whatever you want to call it, they will be okay, like, okay, let's do nothing else, and let's let the player go wherever he wants. Let's allow the player to play wherever he wants to play in, and that's it. I mean, this is the end of the story. This is over, and we don't have to insist anymore in renewing the player, or in renewing a player who really doesn't want to play anymore with us. You know what I'm saying? So it is not about it is not only good for Real Madrid, it is also very good for the player, because he will be free to negotiate, he will be free, and he will have peace of mind in terms of, okay, I don't have these guys just blasting me, pressing me, pushing me to sign another contract and things like that. So that's why this is very good news for Real Madrid, right? So to me, this is actually the best news we've ever heard in a while in regards to Kylian Mbappe. And now let me move on and let's go to talk about the game tomorrow. I mean, against Osasuna, we are playing a very important game, because although it is not as difficult as the match against FC Barcelona or something like that, or even Shakhtar Donetsk, let me tell you what, Osasuna is in the 6th position in the standings in La Liga. They are doing a very, very decent season so far. And of course, there is another problem for Real Madrid, because although for so many people out there, Carlo Ancelotti might repeat the same lineup he displayed in the last two games, against Shakhtar Donetsk and also FC Barcelona. Let me tell you something. There are so many players, there are a bunch of players on the bench who are looking forward to get back on the starting 11, and they would not understand why Carlo Ancelotti is leaving them on the bench, when he has the chance to display them, to line them up in the next game against Osasuna. They would never understand that decision. So that's why, in my opinion, Carlos Ancelotti is feeling the pressure, is feeling, okay, I have to put these guys, I have to, line up these guys, just because they have spent the last 2 games against FC Barcelona and Shakhtar Donetsk on the bench, and I'm talking about, for example, Hazard, I'm talking about Marco Asensio, I'm talking about Camavinga. These players used to be in the starting 11 for Real Madrid before the international break. So all of a sudden, overnight, they saw how Carlo Ancelotti decided to leave them on the bench, just because he thought that, Casemiro, Modric and Kroos, the 3 players played at the same time in the midfield of Real Madrid, might be better for the defense and also for the midfield of Real Madrid. And he was pretty right, and he did a great job. Real Madrid won both games against Shakhtar Donetsk and FC Barcelona. So there are so many reasons for Ancelotti to say, no, I'm going to keep these players on the bench, because to me, there is no any different option to replace. There's no another reason to replace these players like Modric, Casemiro or Kroos, just because Camavinga, Asensio or Hazard are looking forward to play. But the problem is, if your project is based on try to do the things in a different way and try to trust a little bit more in the youngsters, in players like Camavinga, in players like Marco Asensio, who are obviously very good players, and actually they have done very good jobs every time they have been on the lineup. And Marco Asensio scored 3 goals against Mallorca. He did a great job. Camavinga is leaving behind a lot of good feelings, good sensations. All the people are very excited towards Camavinga. So there are a bunch of reasons out there for Carlo Ancelotti to put him on the starting 11. But at the same time, if you want results, if you want some, this kind of midfield and defense stabilization, what you need to display on the field is players with more experience, like Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Casemiro, and also Ferland Mendy, because you know that these players are able to provide this kind of, stable play, stable game that you really want or you are really looking for. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it is going to be very difficult, but tomorrow is the day for some players to get some rest and then to replace them with other players that might be important as well for Real Madrid, and actually they have been important so far. Marco Asensio, again, Camavinga or Eden Hazard. They are actually saying, by the way, even Courtois might be on the bench tomorrow, and Lunin might have the first chance this season to play with Carlo Ancelotti, Real Madrid, or in the lineup of Real Madrid. So to me, tomorrow, the game against Osasuna, we might see a lot of different new faces, new players, new possible tactical adjustments. For example, if you see Marco Asensio on the midfield, we will see a completely different strategy, because if you have Camavinga, Casemiro, Marco Asensio, they play in different ways, they play with different skills, and of course Marco Asensio is much better player when he plays forward, right behind the forwards, and he displays much better, and he performs in a much more positive and better way when he plays right behind the forwards, rather than if he does in the midfield or even back here. You know what I'm saying? So to me, Marco Asensio might force a new tactical formation, or within the same tactics, we might see Real Madrid playing in a different way, right? And the other thing is, if Camavinga is there, of course, Camavinga, if he has Casemiro in his back, I would say Camavinga will play a little bit forward and might be another player in the attack of Real Madrid, because we know that Camavinga is a player who is able to carry up the ball very easily, very quickly. The decision-making process is super quick in his mind. He always choose wisely. He never anticipate anything. He always try to look ahead and think ahead and all the stuff. So it is a very smart player. So I would say that if he has his back completely covered by Casemiro, I would say that him and Marcos Asensio might play a little bit forward than usual, more at least than Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. But let's see what happens tomorrow. The most important again is that we get the 3 points and top the standings again. So now let me know your thoughts about that. Just comment in the section below, and of course subscribe my channel, Real Madrid Hub.